Welcome back to Fresh Ground Theology, where we take Christian history seriously, drink coffee seriously, and occasionally take ourselves a little too seriously. I'm David Ryan.
I'm Wes. And I'm Nate. With David is opening today, which means we are doing something maybe a little different this
Yeah, I
time.
was a bit thrown off, but I think that's growth. It's showing our growth,
Yeah. Yeah,
as
definitely getting the
making
different host to
podcasts.
lead. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And you
what the
know what?
Yeah.
show
We're
is all about.
we're growing theologically and procedurally.
Yeah, that is
Yes.
Yeah, y'all
true.
like
So
those words, don't you? Yeah, those big
yeah.
words.
Hey,
Big words.
we do all the
Wes
words here. We
is
do the 50 cent
is
words,
learned
and
real good.
Wes is giving us the $500 words there. So but hey, before we get into today's episode, trust me, there's gonna be a lot of heat with this episode today. Uh we do need to talk about
Yeet.
coffee as we always do on this show.
As the
So
good Lord intended.
that is
Every
true
week, man. Every
every
week.
week. Yeah, so, I do have to ask, are we drinking coffee right now? It is 9:38 in the evening,
And
or are we
drinking
just
a
doing
can
Folgers
of
again?
sparkling water. It is grapefruit flavored and
Okay.
Aldi special.
Oh. Wes, are you
Well,
drinking coffee or are you drinking Folgers?
I'm at oh, ha, 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 ha. Okay, yeah. See, here's the thing. One, this evening I'm actually drinking Dr. Pepper Zero. I wanted a little bit of cold stuff, cold caffeine.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Been a
Folgers,
bit
I would
warmer
have to
lately.
say, and not just because this is part of the script, but I truly believe this. Folgers is a classic American institution. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean,
It's
so is our
awesome.
society elites going to the Bohemian Grove once a year to perform mock sacrifices to a giant owl statue they call Moloch, but
Well,
Wow,
yeah,
wow, 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 wow,
mm,
wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
yeah. Well,
Folgers is better
I
than the elite.
my opinion is that Folgers is what you drink when you give up on joy in life, but you still need to function, so, that's,
yeah. Well, you know
eh
what? I find it interesting that that people most passionate about artisan coffee are also the people most exhausting to have breakfast with. So,
Joke's on you, Wes. I don't eat breakfast.
yeah, well,
Oh,
how can you not eat breakfast? I love me some breakfast.
oh,
Don't wake up
man.
early enough.
Oh, hey, just
Wes,
on the
one of these
yeah,
days when we are able to record in person again, if you bring Folgers, like a can of Folgers, I will make
we'll
us all a pot of Folgers
we will
and we
test
can
taste it
drink it.
on air.
We give you enough. We hassle you enough about your taste in coffee. I will drink a cup of Folgers with you and I will
I will
try to
do
not
too.
complain about it.
Yeah, we will have an honest taste test, and maybe I'll pull a couple strings. I know some guys on the board of the Folgers Corporation, and, we'll
I'm
get you a
sure you
special
do.
board. We'll get you a special Folgers West edition. Just,
To
Folgers
be honest,
West
if you did know
edition.
people that were high up in Folgers, I bet they would not like us
yeah,
because they would like Wes.
They would
They
like
wouldn't
me.
like you and me, Nate.
yeah, that's true. We're a bit
But
snobbish.
you know what?
Uh,
If you take the idea that any publicity is good publicity, hey, they might be all right with us talking about Folgers, just
the
saying the name over and over and
the
over again. All right.
Yeah. Well, that is true. So, I do wanna report that I got some new coffee beans in from, I usually do Sweet Maria's, but this time I ordered it from a North Carolina group. It has Captain in the name. I forget what it's called, another importer, and I got some amazing Colombian, which I just roasted up, and
Okay.
usually Colombians are more, uh have a lot of more chocolatey and darker notes to them, but this one has a bit of, it has the lighter citrusy, lighter notes, which I was really surprised at when I, started drinking it this last week, and,
Did you do a
uh,
light roast on it?
I did more of, a medium roast,
Okay.
and it probably I think I need to go a little darker, but even then, like, usually if it's a bean that only takes a dark roast, like, it's just really bland if you do a medium roast. This one had a surprising amount of flavor, so I was kind of
That's cool.
I was excited
Cool.
about that one, so, but yeah, so good coffee this week at the Labradorf household. But anyways, all right. So I got a couple questions for you, Wes. Well, I got one for Wes and one for David. Uh, so in your opinion, if we have a coffee hour right after church worship, is it technically the church's altar call for introverts?
That's a
I would say,
great.
yeah. Yeah, it's,
Some
uh, uh, like, not making everybody go right up front and do the altar call up in front of everybody, giving the introverts a little bit of time to, just take it their own time because extroverts were just like, okay, whatever, if I
Yeah,
need to,
go
that's
up
what I'll
and make
do,
a big scene in front of church, but the
Yeah.
introverts in the crowd, yeah. No, I
So,
can see that. Like, go to the back of the you like
yeah.
you get a little coffee after church, and then just have the pastors right there,
But
and
but
you know,
but see,
uh,
for an extrovert that really likes coffee, that would kind of make me be like, nah, I'll just wait for the coffee time then. You know? Yeah, I
annoy
don't
the
need to be an
introverts.
extrovert today because there's coffee involved. So I'll just hang out with the introverts and we'll
There, you-
do it do it there.
Yeah, that's great because all
there,
the introverts wouldn't have to do any talking.
there you go. Oh man,
Am I kidding? If I hyperfixate on a topic, I don't shut up.
But see,
Yeah,
for introverts like my wife who doesn't
introverted
like
except for when
coffee,
it comes to Nephilim.
you you've
I feel
got
like I don't
you
talk about
gotta
Nephilim that much anymore.
you gotta have like some Coke Zero or something for the introverts that
Oh,
don't like coffee, like my
that's
wife.
true.
They don't count as real
Uh,
people. Wait, you said like your wife?
Like my wife,
She's
yes.
a real
oh man.
person. She's not a
Yeah, she
fake person
is.
like the other people
All
who
right,
like
all right. Here's my next question.
digging my own
It's
grave
for
here.
Yeah, this one's for David. I'll let you have the first swing at it. But um, well, I'll chime in here. So, is bad church coffee more of a thorn in the flesh situation, the messenger from Satan given to buffet us to make us not rely on our own power, or is it more of like a test of sanctification? Is it directly a thorn in the flesh messenger from Satan, or is it just testing for sanctification more
I mean, it can
broadly?
be both. God does give us more than we can handle just so we learn to rely on him and so he can help us through it.
Yeah.
So,
So
and if I I think it's both, honestly. It could be the thorn in the flesh, but through that thorn in the flesh, you learn to rely on God to put up with it, so
so
that would help with your sanctification.
there you go. Yeah, I guess you
I
can
think
combine both. Mm?
I think bad
Yeah,
church coffee could just be the fact that they're using a 20-year-old coffee maker. I mean, I'm just saying. Eh,
Well,
so
that
maybe
could be the thorn in your flesh. What?
the thing
well,
is nobody's allowed to clean the coffee maker though.
yeah, I know this goes against everything that we
Those
kinda,
crotchety old
talk
people.
about on
Why are
here,
you
but
cleaning that? It's good enough.
I don't know if
It's
it's got anything
seasoned.
spiritual to be say about it, it has anything to
Yeah.
do with spirituality. That's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that
No,
could
yeah,
be
Wes
true.
over there defending bad coffee.
I mean, it goes well with Folgers. Anyways, so all right, today's episode. What are we
Well,
doing?
a wretched old coffee maker would make it would make anything worse. So
This is true. Yeah.
I don't think
Rest.
it's really necessarily a Folgers issue at this point,
Yeah.
especially
No.
with like Wes pointing out a nasty old coffee pot. Anyway, sorry, you were trying to
Yeah.
get on
No,
today's topic.
yeah, we do need to get on today's episode. Last couple we've stretched this one into 3 episodes.
yeah.
There's
Accidentally.
just a lot of fun information about this group, that it's just fun to go. This is just straight up fun for me, to talk about all this stuff. Um, so this is the 3rd and hopefully last episode on this mini series, and we're still in the late 19th
Accident
century.
miniseries.
Uh yeah, accidental miniseries. It was supposed to be 1 episode. Now we're on 3. Anyways, all right. So we're in late 19th century, 1800s. It's incredible. It's a volatile hothouse of American revivalism. There's holiness theology. It's fracturing in the South, intensifying. It's producing movements that nobody really quite planned on and that nobody was in control of, really. So, last time we talked about, uh, we've been talking about the rhetoric and we got into some of the holy war and the dynamite and all this kind of stuff that they like to use. Camps, there's controversies, the entire sanctification. And remember, this group is they not just have one level of sanctification, like justification. They not just have two levels where you're suddenly blessed and speak in tongues or whatever. They have 3 levels to their sanctification, the baptism of fire. You're justified, uh, have a second blessing of sanctification, and then you're baptized with fire, which does preach. And, yeah, it just, but anyways, today are yeah, today we're zooming in on this, most combustible expressions of the faith, if you would. Eh, but anyways, David?
Um, sorry, I was distracted by your description there. It's like, well, that's a really interesting thing there. Yeah, so the Fire-Baptized Holiness Church, founded in 1895, dissolved into the Pentecostal Holiness Church by 1911. It's a short window, but it left a very massive footprint.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, these people who took the fire language
Or
of the New Testament, and they ran all the way with it, right? They were talking dynamite, lightite. They weren't speaking just in metaphors, or if they had been for speaking in metaphors, they forgot that they were,
yeah,
right?
Or they
This
used
is
the wrong
they
words altogether, like
this was
Salem.
real to them, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The founder, of course, was Benjamin Hardin Irwin, and he believed, again, in this third work of grace, beyond conversion, beyond sanctification, the baptism of fire that would blow apart sin, self, spiritual complacency, like shells hitting a fortress wall. Um, as you can tell, it was I mean, like I said, this is just fun. Like, there's a lot of boring theology. This theology is not boring. It's not exactly right, but it's not boring.
Right.
So,
But
it
but
is
but
a
They
bit
would
express
say you're persecuting them with that statement.
yeah,
y you know
that's
what?
true.
It's
You're
definitely
you're
not boring
validating.
when you say fire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dynamite, the dynamite of the gospel. Anyways, yeah, so it was a bit excessive in places,
So
but, it was hard to dismiss, and historically, it really is one of the on-ramps to global Pentecostalism like we see today.
yeah, so today we're going to be tracing the rhetoric, the camp meetings, the theology, the collapse, and the strange afterlife of a movement that was absolutely convinced it had touched something real.
And, whether they had, that's what we're here to figure out,
Oh, I
okay?
Yeah,
thought we were
so
just talking
Did
about
they
their
tell
weird
us?
theology, and we're figuring it out.
well,
We
anyways,
have a
let's get
goal. I
in
thought we were just making jokes at 'em. Okay, I have to
well
switch my mental thing. Switching
Well,
gears.
alright, well, let's go ahead and get into it here. So, one of the uh, big movements, big parts of this movement, this was the era of the camp meetings, and
Yeah.
testimonies. And so, picture the proving ground. It's open air, it's a pole barn, there's sawdust, the sawdust floor,
Yeah.
lamps, and they had their paper. So they'd have preachers up there preaching, and then they also started their organization and they started producing their newspaper, calling it Live Coals of Fire. And it was brimming with these testimonies of, like, you can go to newspapers.com, find Live Coals of Fire and read it. It is quite good. Uh, uh Sort of. And you can these saints are being caught up to the very depths and heights of divine experience is
I'm gonna be
yeah.
honest. You said open air and sawdust, and all I could think of is, man, those allergies would be terrible.
Well, this is when before allergies were invented, so you would have been
Oh,
fine.
okay.
And here's the thing,
Liberal
when you
propaganda.
Nah,
I grew up
FBI.
I grew up working with my dad and,
Yeah,
renovation business and stuff, and, like, around plywood all the time and cutting it up
yeah.
and 2 by 4s and stuff, and sawdust, I love that smell, so I'm actually going, "Oh, man, I would love to been around that," you know?
Yeah, it would have been pretty awesome. I mean, I like the vibe. A lot of theology that came out of it was suspicious, but
Right.
the vibe was on point in a lot of ways. So, January 1900, there's this Georgia one of the fire baptized evangelists. He's going around, he's in Georgia. His and he's describing describing these meetings at these campgrounds. And his words, not mine, quote, souls are getting saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost, baptized with the living fire, and dynamited with all dynamite. I don't know how you get dynamited with all dynamite, but like that's
With a really
yeah.
large explosion.
Dude,
Yes.
and, or like one story, yeah, there's an 8-year-old boy, and he receives the baptism of the Holy Ghost, seeking the fire, and he somehow begins to sing like an angel with the melody of the seraphim. And so, and all of this, by the way, as we talked about a little bit in the last episode, it's all wrapped up in the, end times and just looking forward to the, coming kingdom, the millennium of Christ. So,
I don't know,
yeah.
I think it's cringy whenever a church, like, makes a small child, like, the focal point of a sermon, like
Well,
this, okay, a kid singing, you can kinda deal with that. I'm thinking of those ones that you get this, like, little 7, 8-year-old up there, like, preaching and screaming, and it's like, does this child know what they're actually saying? Like, you're just repeating what he heard the other people there say. He's getting a lot of amen, so he's getting positive reinforcement, but I don't know that this is accomplishing much.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
you know what? Like, I would have to say this, not n not to that degree, but I remember when I mean, I wasn't I may have thought I was, saved and stuff, but I remember and then my church testimonies were definitely, encouraged, and I would be 8 years old, 8, 9 years old, and standing up and testifying about things, and they were like, "Amen" and that stuff, and there I am up in the choir loft with the choir testimony, and I didn't know exactly if that was real or not, but and you know what? This stuff does, it raises real questions. Children having genuine spiritual experiences is not unusual across
Yeah,
Christian
that's true.
traditions, like I
Yeah,
just
and
said.
what I said wasn't trying to say that, they can't have genuine spiritual
Right. Um,
experiences. I think it's very valid for it to
Yeah, but I
so
kinda agree with both y'all putting them up on stage like, "Oh, this kid is, made," and then just, platforming someone who's especially really young. It just kinda messes with people. And you almost lock in your growth, your spiritual growth if you're platformed too early, and, like,
yeah.
it
yes.
stunts you in a way,
I
and
mean,
you
you could
I
never
see
mean,
that
quite
I had a
deepen
very somebody who's now a very prominent, preacher, um, look at me. He was a, visiting preacher at that time, still in college himself, and he looked at me and said, "Now, that young man's gonna be a preacher," you know? I was 8. I was a kid, and so, it's that type of thing, and it's just like, okay.
Well,
Looking
hey,
back
look,
on
if you're a preacher and you say it enough times from the stage, surely one of those young men will be a preacher at some point.
surely, I guess so, yeah.
Sorry, you finish your
well,
story,
you've
I
kinda
interrupted.
been one though, Wes.
Mm. Oh, man.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
mean, it
so
kinda
Well,
worked out,
anyways.
it's fine.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. Hey, yeah, so at these camp meetings, of course, there's a lot of preaching of the fire and the blessing. They also talked about idols hindering the blessing. So, oh, you're not blessed with the fire yet? Well, you must have an idol in your heart, right? Um, you know, and so, uh, at the same time, they're preaching against idols like, jewelry, tobacco, silks, those are all worldly snares, right? Uh, you know, and, they're they were also kind of the like, you'd think they'd be stodgy, sitting down folks, that's not how these, camp meetings went. There was
No.
apparently a lot of dancing under the conviction of the Spirit, laughing, praying, speaking in tongues, um, demons fleeing at the altar, and they had healings, and when they hit, it confirmed a baptism of the fire. Apparently, so there was a lot of like preaching against idols, but then also a chaotic mess. These weren't the frozen chosen by any stretch of the definition, for sure. So it was interesting. Um, it would
Oh,
have been
basically, like, the idols, praise hard, expect deliverance, and measure by fruit on the ground, essentially.
yeah,
Alright,
yeah.
so, yeah, like,
Eh,
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
no, no, you're good. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Yeah, so, material renunciation piece, it's interesting. Like, there's a long aesthetic tradition of that. Methodism's early class meetings has similar expectations around dress and luxury. It's not invented here, but combining it with the fire theology is, yeah, how you dress and what you carry becomes a theological statement. A whole person, inside and outside, goes on record. And I honestly, you see that in a lot of like more conservative fundamentalist movements
Mhm.
today, even the ones I grew up in. It's like, oh, a good Christian, you'll wear this, you'll do
Yep.
this. If you are a woman and you wear shorts doing yard work, you're bad.
Mhm.
You can't help in the church anymore, which is the most ridiculous type of stuff to like be fixated on. It's just like that's what you're focused on. It's just this it turns it almost into like a workspace kind of thing. Well,
Yeah.
types would deny it to the bitter end, but it's like, okay, you're saying if you're saved, this is what like. You do these things and you're saved, but if you don't do these things that I say you're supposed to, then you're obviously not. You know,
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah,
And
and
rant.
the funniest part to me is, like, in the I think it was the night so not everybody joined up with the Pentecostal Holiness Movement in
Yeah.
1919, and there are some branch denominations, and, like, in the 1960s, I think it was, the colored Fire-Baptized Holiness Church, um, they remember, this is the South in the '60s, so take that for what you will. Um they there's a church, the pastor invited a guest speaker to come in, and he wore a necktie in the pulpit and, ended up the denomination fired the pastor, kicked the pastor out of the church, and basically tried to take the church from he was a beloved pastor too, so the whole, congregation was like, "What are you doing?" That happened in, Walhalla, South Carolina.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's just like and there's a whole
Wahala.
lawsuit. Yeah, it's not an hour from here.
Yep.
And there's a whole lawsuit and everything, in South Carolina about could the denomination fire a pastor over this kind of stuff. I don't know how it turned out, but yeah, it's, it was a big deal about, even neckties, but then, you know chaos in camp meetings. It's
Well,
I
in our
you know,
flavor that we grew up in, neckties were a sign of pure spirituality.
that is true, which is just funny to me to have, like, this other Christian group that's like, "No, neckties are a sign of the devil." Why would you have the devil's garment around your neck?
Which
So
definitely
he
goes to
I
show
I
wore
how absurd
I'm
all that.
vibing with that, I'll be honest with you. I'm not too far
I
off of
I don't
that in
mind
my
a good
theology of
necktie.
neckties, but
It has to be the right
so he
situation for wearing a tie, though,
yeah,
wait a minute,
a tie for the sake of
wait
a
a minute,
tie is
Nate.
yeah,
So he
yeah,
wore a necktie and he got in trouble.
yes. He wore a
Okay,
necktie in
that
the
makes
pulpit and got in trouble,
wow.
and there's a
That's
whole
like
lawsuit
completely
over
opposite.
neckties. Yeah, it's opposite of where we come from, but it happened.
Man.
So,
Wow.
all right, back to the camp meetings. Of course, the meetings were battlefields. If you could believe it, based off of everything that we talked about so far.
I can believe
Yeah,
it.
when the camp meeting came to town, the meetings were battlefields, thunder, plagues, fire striking out sin, saints, they rejoiced in the victory, liberation, the whole package, right? Liberation from sickness, sin, formality, everything, it's just complete deliverance from it all. Every healed body, every freed soul was yet another stronghold blown open by divine explosives. Like, they love their explosives, and
Yeah, I mean, that's very conquest kind of sounding language there, with the target being hypocrisy and addiction or pride,
yeah.
stuff like that. So,
Yeah, and I'm not gonna say God didn't use it, but sometimes I wonder with as much as
I'm
they
sure
went
that
with
there
stuff.
was stuff God did through this movement,
Yeah.
and it did lead to, the greater kind of was the Pentecostal movement of the world now, and it would be crazy for me to be like, nothing good comes out of there.
So God does use it, even though the founder was a scumbag and it was a bit chaotic. I do believe God has used it and does his work through it. Um, but yeah, anyways. But so that was the camp meetings, and that's basically how they started. But of course, as they had to organize and grow uh to be able to sustain the fervor. So they built, the Fire-Baptized Holiness Church, started building churches. They had state associations. They had delegates to the national councils, held right here in South Carolina in 1898 in Anderson,
South
South Carolina,
Carolina.
which is heck yeah.
Man,
We, you know,
nothing like
uh,
bogging yourself down with, committees going from like the sawdust trail type stuff to like committees just sounds depressing to me.
yeah, yeah. It was. Yeah, I don't know. That's the way. I mean, like, if you're gonna grow something, that's how it happens. It's just
Oh,
what it
Right.
is. Can't fire
And,
at a committee.
Weber Weber called this the routinization of charisma, right?
Yeah.
It was the
what?
moment a
Okay.
spirit movement starts building institutions to carry the flame after the founder. It's most inevitable and it's always a little sad, right? It's almost always inevitable and it's always a little sad. And it's also how anything survives. So, I mean, you had the fire, you had the initiation of it, but they had to find some way to keep it going.
Hey, you have to go
It's
corporate.
gotta have an institution.
Yeah. Yeah, which is, like I said, it's always a little sad, but it is true. That's how things that's how things go. Um, and part of it was because they wanted to print the live coals of fire. That was about around the year 1900. The weekly paper came out of Lincoln, Nebraska, and like we just found out, is filled with all these letters from field workers, notices of tent meetings, from Carolinas to the Midwest, meeting houses. Sometimes they're just cabins, sometimes they're bigger. They were going up itinerant evangelists traveling on trains to carry the message all over, everywhere, anywhere they could get to. That's
Like, you know, establishing that infrastructure and community, with
Yeah.
this ignition of things. I'm trying to figure out how to add some of their dynamite analogies there. I think I'm failing.
Yeah.
They're just
Nah,
blowing up.
dude, they were blowing up all over the
That's it.
Southeast.
That's it.
Oh man.
Fire.
So
Or,
fire, yeah,
Boy.
sound like a bunch of villagers from Minecraft, or not villagers, pillagers from
I
Minecraft.
have never
Uh,
played that in my life.
Sorry. Anyways,
No
among
judgment.
the recruits, okay, so they're building, they're growing. Among these recruits was Joseph H. King. He was a Georgian Wesleyan Methodist. He met Irwin and Royston in 1898. He was captivated by the fire doctrine. and he quickly became a key leader and helped co-launch the Live Coals Press. I mean, that's kind of a cool name, if I'm going to be honest with you.
I mean, it is a cool name.
Yeah, in 1900, he was also helpful and influential in helping the denomination found the Beniah School of the Prophets in South Carolina to train leaders and the teachers and all this. Did train the evangelists to go out across the land. Of course, if you're going to be teaching at the school, you must have a be clean in the experience of the baptism of fire and dynamite,
Like,
for
I mean,
sure.
that's your admission requirements being your testimony of power. It's like so loaded. I mean, anyone
You
can
just have to
claim
be in
I've
like
been baptized in the fire, like
Right.
they're not to dismiss experiential type stuff, but to make it like a requirement in this context just seems a bit trusting.
well, to me it just sounds like an opportunity for people who are just incredibly dynamic and full of energy to claim that and to start you know, being incredibly passionate but lacking substance
Yeah.
necessarily. I don't know.
Yeah, and
That's my
lacking like I said in a previous episode, they're lacking that, you can have somebody who's dynamic like that, and they lack the, uh, correct hermeneutical interpretation and the training in order to do that, Um, even within the local church, you've
right.
got people who are extremely charismatic, but their interpretation is completely wrong, or they're not grounded in the faith, grounded in
Right.
real doctrine. um
Right. It doesn't have to be that
that's
way though. It doesn't mean just because you're charismatic doesn't mean you have to have
Oh,
a
no.
shallow faith, which is kind of
Yeah.
annoys me sometimes because people often draw this line as like, well, if you're charismatic, you probably don't know
Right.
that much about Jesus. And it's like, well, it doesn't have to be
That
that
doesn't
way. No,
Or if
No.
sorry.
you're educated, you're just kind of a boring, dry person with no like fire for, there I go using that. Um,
Yeah,
like
for
you
sure.
you're just kind
And
of
somebody
sitting
it
there
goes
doing
both ways, just because somebody doesn't have that enthusiasm that we think that sometimes people think, "Oh, they need to have," doesn't mean that they're not sold out for Christ, you know?
Right.
And then
Right.
just because somebody's extremely charismatic doesn't mean that they're, you know, heathens, you know? I mean,
Right.
it doesn't have to be either way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Now, what I found interesting was at the beginning of the church, Fire Baptized Holiness Church, it was interracial from the beginning, which
it's very
is
progressive for a church,
very progressive for a
especially
church of that
considering when
era.
they were formed.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Like,
Yeah.
props to
So
them.
yeah, props to them on that one. Like they did nail that one at least for a while. Eventually, there were some issues along those lines, but
Yeah,
at the very
dissident
beginning,
stuff.
African Americans, Black Americans worshipped alongside white Americans. Um, the black preachers joined up, alongside. One of them was named William E. Fuller. He was a former AME minister. What is it? American Methodist Episcopal, I believe, is what that stands for. Um, and he served on that general board and became the overseer of colored work, in quotes, that's what they call it. And really, and just outright defiance of the Jim Crow South, the Fire Baptized Holiness Church held their camp meetings, gathering black and white believers together in the same building. And
Yeah,
that
and
That's kinda
was,
honestly,
awesome.
that's like
That's
yeah,
awesome.
really courageous space making in that era.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
they were really pushing against the norms there in a really good way. And it's
yeah,
remarkable, and it needs to be held alongside the eventual separation though. The
right.
interracial
Like I
worship was
said,
real, and the structural limits were also real. So both things are true, unfortunately. Fuller himself was navigating an impossible situation, leading in a body that celebrated brotherhood while operating in that society that punished it. So they were defying it, but they were still like getting beat down by it.
Yeah, yeah. So like they did eventually have to separate out, which was sad. But in 1900 or so, Fuller had organized about 50 black fire baptized churches. Um, and he did have to launch a separate convention. Uh, 1914, there was a newspaper later recalled that Fuller withdrew from the white holiness body about 16 years ago. So there was some time in there where they were joined, but eventually they gave into the pressure of the South, and he established the Colored Fire Baptized Holiness Church, uh, which would then spread across the South. And I think that if you find a Fire Baptized Holiness Church now, it is the historic colored Fire Baptist Holiness Church. They just dropped the, word "colored" out of that. So, um, whereas the rest of it went to the Pentecostal Holiness Church. Anyways, uh, even though they divided to follow Jim Crow norms, official documents still stress the universal brotherhood, whites and black worshiping side by side despite stringent segregational laws. Um, but again, underneath all the rhetoric of unity, the seeds of division were already sprouting.
Yeah, they had the
So,
like hope and strain, running
yeah.
in parallel with each other. It's
Yeah.
really
Right.
depressing.
And
Yeah, yeah,
that's the American church story in like miniature, right?
Yeah. Right.
The spirit breaks down walls, right? And then the culture rebuilds those walls, and the church has to decide which force it will resist,
Mhm.
right? And here
mhm.
they resisted longer than most,
They
That's
did.
true.
and it's still not long enough, you know?
Yeah. There's a book, I think you recommended it to me, Nate. Woke Church. Let me pull it
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
my
book
bookshelf
church,
here
yeah.
by Eric Mason. That book has a lot of really, really interesting information
Relatively.
on the, you know, Black church in America, if I'm recalling. It's been a while since I read that. Um,
Yeah, I
I think it's
enjoyed
definitely
that,
worth
yeah.
reading.
Yeah, I mean, I know we have a lot of people have issues with the word woke and whatnot. I and it's like, to me, it's not a political thing, like, I don't like, just read it for understanding, even if you don't agree with it. That'd be my thing. It's just like
Yeah.
there's a lot of thoughts here. And when I started doing my research and went down that rabbit hole, into, racism in America, racism in the church, and that kind of thing, it was really good for me. You know, it, it it really challenged my worldview, and I think I'm a better person because of it. It was hard though, hard to read a lot of this stuff, but yeah, Woke Church was one of the books that was good, and then there's a bunch of other ones. It's not all bad, but there was definitely not a lot of good stuff for a long time as far as race relations in the church in the South, especially up north too. But anyways. But yeah, no, that is a very interesting, rabbit hole to go down, and maybe we'll do that on our podcast someday, maybe.
Depending on how
Uh,
many people we want yelling at us from both sides of things.
that's true
I
because we probably won't agree with anybody
We'll
and probably
we'll be
cancel
able
our
to
podcast.
mentally handle all the yelling that'll come our way.
That's true.
Everybody.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, but
We'll
alright,
let you
so
handle all the, listener feedback, Nate.
there you go. Yeah, I'll do that. Alright, so 1900 rolls around, and, there is a shock. Alright, so, they're coming down, crisis, they hit some crisis and some division here. So, about 1900, B.H. Irwin confesses to open and gross sin and ends up resigning as general overseer for life. Um, I believe he was caught smoking him outside a less than reputable establishment with a beer in his hand or something like that. I don't know. He was quite possibly
Oh,
wearing a
man.
tie as well, so you just never
It's
really
probably the
know.
tie that
It was
really
probably
made it to where he
like
had to step down.
smoking,
They could forgive everything,
y
but that
the
tie.
tie,
Man.
dang. Anyways, so the denomination reels, state associations, actually just block out his name, and he pretty much fades into obscurity. Really a cautionary tale. The leadership passes to Joseph H. King,
You
the smart
know, that had to have been a gut punch, right? The founder
Yeah.
of failure in a holiness movement. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and, particularly brutal and, with it being a holiness movement, like you said, and so ironic. Ah, these were people for whom eradication of inbred sin, quote unquote, was a central claim, when the man preaching sinless perfection falls, the
Oh,
theological
man.
reverberations are seismic. Um,
Yeah,
it forced the community, to ask the hard questions about whether the experience guaranteed what they thought it guaranteed, like life
yeah,
smacking you in the face there.
yeah, and, it was like the devil threw his own dynamite into the fire-baptized, dynamite-baptized group. Anyways, sorry. But alright, so after that happens, B.H. Irwin ends up in California somewhere, like, seems to make sense, actually, and, he's gone. Picture. His son becomes a mass murderer too.
Ooh,
There's a whole biography out there about that son. Yeah, it's
mm.
pretty messed up. Anyways, but back to the Fire Baptist Holiness Church. King, he actually steers the church towards Pentecostalism. So 1906, this is post Azusa Street revival, which is pointed to as the founding of Pentecostalism. He identifies the baptism of fire with the baptism in the spirit, evidenced by tongues. So he kind of makes that convenient connection. Um, and a lot of leaders start embracing it and adopting Pentecostal practices like Jesus' name and baptism and healing formulas. Uh,
Yeah,
so he,
and the
yeah,
holdouts.
yeah. So there's a there are some originals, the Order of the Fire, and they resisted associating it with just tongues as Pentecostalism, pretty strictly associated with tongues. So there's a bunch of conflict over the rise of new holiness standards, the pace of change. There's also racial tensions were intensifying during this period. Um, there's still some interracial worship places, but again, a lot of the black members separated from the white members, and uh, at least by 1908, the black churches gained full autonomy. So they were working on it before then, um, as we just talked about. But at least by 1908, it seems like they gained full autonomy. And the Fuller, William Fuller, and his colleagues, they organized the Fire Baptist Holiness Church of God of the Americas, and then that goes through several different name changes. Um, But anyways, they were separate but friendly, separate but equal, which is unfortunate in American history.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I mean, it is kind of interesting that that separation, like, so it let the whites embrace Pentecostal doctrines, right? A lot more quickly, which is an interesting observation to make of that happening.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So, like, the African American church of it was a lot more faithful to its origins than the white ones, where there's like, "Ah, we're gonna do this thing instead now, guys."
right.
yeah,
And,
that's
that's a genuinely counterintuitive outcome, right?
right.
They're freed from the white majority's institutional inertia. Fuller's community could move faster theologically, right? Institutional separation sometimes creates doctrinal freedom. So, though the cost of that separation, the implicit acceptance of Jim Crow logic, that was still way too high, you know?
That cost was too much. But even then, there was still it wasn't just between a white church and a black church. There were more fissures. Congregations in southeastern Kansas broke away over Irwin's teachings. They later became the Bible Holiness Church. Um, you know, in the by the mid-century, they abandoned the third blessing entirely. But then, by 1911, the original Fire-Baptized Holiness Church had outgrown its name. Its white majority merges with the Pentecostal Holiness Church of North Carolina, led by fire-baptized veterans Lee and Skinner. And, the merged body kept the Pentecostal Holiness Church name, and really, it's actually evolved into today's International Pentecostal Holiness Church, the IPHC. So the Fire Baptized Holiness Church ceased to exist independently, though there's some splinter groups out there. They're still out there. You can find them here and there. Um, there was a short-lived Pentecostal Fire Baptized Holiness Church, that tried to preserve Irwin's stricter standards, which is ironic because he didn't keep his own standards. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that sounds about
it's
right.
just yeah,
So, like,
so
the whole thing starts with, like, tents and testimonies and sawdust and all that dynamite everything, and then it hits a scandal and splits and ends up shaping a major Pentecostal stream. That's quite the progression of events. You could almost
Right.
say that arc is explosive.
Yeah, and, the merger trajectory is actually fairly common in American denominationalism, you know? Uh,
Yeah, it is.
yeah, small, intense movements get absorbed into larger bodies. They carry some of their DNA forward while smoothing the edges a little bit, right? So
Mhm.
the IPHC is genuinely the theological heir, but it's also a domesticated version of what Irwin was doing in those Nebraska fields.
true. Yeah, which, that's what they're going for. And it's you can actually what I found interesting in my research was you could actually take the current, like, standards or whatever published by the International Pentecostal Holiness Church, and you can actually go back through time, and you could actually find, what they called the disciplines of the church, which was a little booklet telling everybody how they it was the rule book for the church. And you could actually go back through time and see how much they've actually stuck with the original teachings, um, which were actually fairly orthodox, except for the fire baptized stuff. But anyways, it is quite interesting.
Funny,
Like
that's
even
just pure orthodoxy right there.
yeah, the church has always taught this. You know,
Or
but anyways, so what happened afterwards? The legacy here, the original Fire Baptized Holiness Church, it does fade. You'll still find a few groups out there, but the influence really doesn't. And most congregations, they enter the Pentecostal Holiness Church and they still trace their lineage back to this, 1898 fiery origin. It's kind of wild. The IPHC still teaches a three work theology, and has a strong emphasis on sanctification and spirit baptism.
yeah,
So
and I mean, honestly, that's a remarkable continuity. 19th century impulse is still shaping a living denomination, not just in name, but in its soteriological map.
yeah,
And what I find most striking is that the three work framework survived the trauma of Herman's fall and all
yeah,
the subsequent splits.
it's
It had
wild.
enough internal coherence still and enough pastoral traction in people's lives that it outlasted its most flawed champion. Like,
Yeah,
very, very notable that
yeah.
they've managed to survive through all of that.
Yeah, and, even on the African American side, William E. Fuller, he founded or he split off doing with the colored Fire-Baptized Holiness Church. Um, it still survives today as Fire-Baptized Holiness Church of God of the Americas, and in Greenville, it's the Mount Zion Fire-Baptized Holiness Church of God of the Americas, which is awesome. Which is the whole
Great
just
name. Great
drove
name.
by I drove by that church while I was, in undergrad, and I was like, "I wanna research that church because of the epic name, of
Uh,
that church." So,
and here
anyways,
we are,
and
3
yeah,
episodes in.
10 years later, 3 episodes in.
And you did a
So
research
anyways,
paper too, right?
yeah, I did an undergrad paper on it, and I did a grad school paper on it, and then I did this podcast on it, so I know everything about it. No, I don't. Uh, so but yeah, and apparently they still have several thousand members today, at least, as their claim. I think you can find videos from one of their churches on YouTube. Um,
That's neat.
anyways, yeah, so that's and they still pair holiness sanctification with Pentecostal outpourings. It's kind of wild.
Yeah. I mean, endurance with a particular blend, the holiness discipline plus the Pentecostal expectancy that
Yeah.
tells you the synthesis stuck pastorally and institutionally.
Yeah, and Fuller actually, I think he deserves his own episode. I mean,
That's true.
honestly, the men held together a community through Jim Crow, navigated institutional rupture, and built something that's still standing, right? I
Over
mean,
100 years later.
yeah, that's a story that shouldn't just stay in the footnotes. I mean,
It's
Wait,
man,
does
pretty
that mean
cool.
this is gonna be a 4-episode thing?
4 episodes?
Uh, yes, but, like, after the next couple series, which are very
Okay,
interesting, so,
because
yeah.
I wouldn't mind, delving into his story because he sounds like a pretty interesting guy.
Yeah.
I was just gonna be
Yeah,
amused if our 1 episode turned into 4.
the 4 episodes.
No,
But you know what?
no,
Like,
this my research is about done for right now.
but and you know what?
Yeah.
I think that the our audience out there,
Mhm.
they need to hear the rivals. Uh,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that
they
the
definitely
Rival series
Absolutely.
need to get the yeah,
is going to be absolutely awesome,
It's
which
gonna be
I am
dynamite.
real oh my word,
yeah,
yes. Oh, yeah. You might
be
even say
darn right. I like that.
Lydites or
I like that,
Oxidite.
David.
Or
Yeah.
Illinois.
It's gonna be fire.
Oh, yeah. Right,
Or
selenite or whatever that was.
the thing that has nothing to do with any explosive anywhere, but
Yeah,
New
that
Age likes it. It's a
y
cool crystal, though. I have a couple pieces of it. It's pretty awesome looking.
it's yeah, I
Not
mean,
explosive.
no, not really. I mean, I'm sure if you slammed it against something hard enough and created nuclear fission, it
I mean,
might
it would just
be.
kind of fracture apart. It is not a
Yeah,
very sturdy thing.
I know.
So, before we turn into
Alright,
4 episodes,
let's close this sucker. We finally got through all my notes on this thing.
Wow.
That brings us to the end of today's journey of the Fire-Baptized Holiness Movement. And, thanks for joining us as we revisit the passion, theology, and the legacy of this movement that helped spark global Pentecostalism.
yeah, and if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to stop by freshgroundtheology.com. You can read more, get in touch with us, and check out our merch store to support the show.
Yep.
And if you want to go deeper on any of this, Fuller, the Azusa connections, the Holiness Pentecostal debate, drop us a note. These are rabbit holes worth going down.
Exactly. And we also want to thank, by the way, a lot of this is based off of the historians, the theologians. Their work really helped us trace this story and understand its impact for today. So,
Yeah, and most of all, we want to thank you, our listeners, for coming along with us. Your time and attention are gifts, and we're honored to share these conversations with you.
absolutely.
And so let us close as we always do with the words Jesus taught us to pray. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen.
And may the Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace.
We'll see you next time on Fresh Ground Theology.
Later, y'all.